Seeing now, Harold, I got caught up with something I completely forgot.
Is everyone back on?
Yes, yes, they're coming
Okay.
back on.
Very good. Sure. Goodbye.
Mario, I'm teaching now. Everybody's coming back on.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Walter, I'm teaching now. I got caught up in something and I came late, so everybody's on now.
It's Shabbos I gotta get ready for Shabbos. Okay, I'll go on. But
Okay, it's not going to be long. It's a short blot.
Mm-hmm.
Mario,
Yes,
can you send Abe a text?
I will.
Thank you. So what time is Mincha tomorrow?
6:25. No. The Shia should be 6:25.
Okay, good.
What else is here?
We're on 29.
It's not a short blast.
Yeah, we're on 29. Tav Tes. Toshma Chatzi, Shochat Chatzi Gargeris V'Shoaba. He cut 50% of the trachea and he paused. Kedei Shchita Cheres, in order for him to then complete the Shchita of the esophagus, Ugamra. So the Gemara says Shchita Sukshera. Now, remember, Rob said that by cutting 50% is as if you cut rove. The Iamrit Mechza Mechza
Yes,
Karov.
yeah, we're starting the Daf now. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mario. Iamrit Mechza Mechza Karov. If, like Rob said, cutting 50% is like rove, then Itrafil, once you cut 50%, you made a treif. So the Gemara says, initially the Avamina was that we were dealing with an animal that you need two. Misavris bebeima lo ba'of. We're talking about a bird. And either way, mimon of shach, if you cut 50% of the trachea and like Rav, it's considered like rov, then you're done. Havilei ruvan, the shchit is good. Then he hasn't done anything. And now when you complete and cut the esophagus, you have a complete shchita. Very good. Abe?
Yep,
Abe, we're on Chavtes, just a few lines from the top.
got it.
Toshma. Aresha Echatzi Kona Pogum. The trachea was 50% of it had a mum. The din is Hoisif Alav Kolshu Gomro. If you just add a little one inch, because now it's beyond 50%. Yeah, but we have a problem. If, like Rob said, 50% is as if rov, then it's already a treif avya. When it had a mum of 50%, it made it treif. A rov shinely Indian treif for the bean and rov on your leinayim. To make something treif, it has to be a rov that we can recognize. So it was only 50%, you wouldn't have been able to recognize that. So by treifa, it doesn't become. Armle abayi v'lo kol d'chenu, but it's a kavachomer. Umat treifa demashu mitrafa. There are treifas where even a tiny hole will treif it, like in a hole in the esophagus, hole in the lung. So if even a mashu who will make something treif, heichad bin and ruba, yet it has to be, in order for you to treif up something more than 50%. And that kind of rav is being in rav anir leinayim. Shchita, no one holds that it would be kosher without rov. The adik ruv lo miskasher lo kosher came to be in rav anir leinayim. You certainly should see a rov that you can see with your eyes. So Kula. So based on this proof, kula mechza mechza in a karov. It's not like Rav said. 50% cut is not considered like rov. You know when Rav said this 50% business? V'chiyitma de Rav with Rav Kahana, it's a different Indian. Linyan Pesach hitma. Areisha Yisrael mechzator mechzatmoim. You know, we have a concept of Pesach Sheni, that if a person is Tameh on Pesach Rishon, he has Pesach Sheni. But if Klal Yisrael was 50-50, Tahor and Tameh, so Rav Amar Mechza Mechza Karov, it's as if the majority are Tameh, and then you could bring it Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. Rav Kan Amar Mechza Mechza in a Karov, and the Yechidim that were Tameh would have to go to Pesach Sheni. Hasa my time at the Rav. Why does Rav say in that case that by 50-50 it's considered a rov? Tichsiv. Ish kiyet tameh nefesh. Ish nidche. Ve'ein tzibur nidche. Only a private individual is pushed to Pesach Sheni, but not at tzibur. The Mishnah said rov echad ba'of. At the end of the Mishnah, it sort of repeated itself and said that even if it's 51%, it's kosher. So the Gemara says, Tanina Chadazimna. We learned this once. Ruba Shalechad Kamo. The majority of one of the tubes is like the whole thing. So Hakash Peshach Simon. Amra Vashia. Chada B'chulim V'chada B'kochim. The first part, or one of the statements has to do about Chullin. The other has to do about Kochim. Now why? Tzricha. Yashmin Chullin, if Arvon been told that you only need that 51% works, maybe that's by Chullin. Hasum desagile beruba. You know why? Mishum de lav ledamut tzarich. Chullin has nothing to do with the dam. A korban, you need to receive the dam, so you do zrikas dam for kapara. But I would have thought that's why by Chullin it works. Ava bekochim de ledamut tzarich. The whole point of kochim is to get the blood. Emelotiskele beruva de ikakula. Maybe cutting 51% wouldn't work. You got to cut the whole thing so you get better blood drainage. And if Yashmin and Kochim by the 51% Mishum Ladam Utzarich, Avachun Ladam Lutzarich Ema Bapaga Sagile, maybe 50% exactly is enough by Chulin because there's no blood needed. Kamash Malan, that we need in both cases. The question is, Hey Bechulin, Hey Bekochim, is which one, the first part of the Mishnah or the second part? Arav Kanim, Mistava Reisha B'chulin, the Sefer B'kochim. It's more logic that the Reisha was Chulin and Sefer Kochim. Mimai. The Reisha said, Miditani Hashoichet, which is just a B'diavad Dikadin. Visagadaitich Reisha B'kochim, and it wouldn't, if it's Kochim, it shouldn't just say Shoichet, it should say Hamoilik M'boilik, because you do Malika for a bird. So the Gemara is going to prove from here that the Reisha is Chulin and the Sefer is Kochim. So the Gemara says, why? Elamai Sefer Kochim. So you're going to say the Sefer is Kochim. So there it says also Shchitasuk Shera. If it's Kochim, it should say Malikasuk Shera Miboili. So the Gemara says Haloi Kasha. That's not a problem because I did the Salik Me Behema. The Tana in the Mishnah left off by a Behema. The Behema you can't do Malika. You have to do Shchita. Tana Nami Shchitasuk Shera. Ela Reisha, Michti Alovkoi. Here it's a good proof. Since we're talking about a bird, because it mentions one simon, Isak Dait Bekochim, you should say Amalek Meboile. So the Gemara accepts this proof that according to this understanding, the Reisha is Chul and the Sefer is Kochim. However, we're going to have four different answers here. The Gemara brings a second. Rav Simi Barashi Omar Reisha B'chulin, also with the same maskana, but mehacha, for a different reason. Diktani echad ba'of, because it says by a bird, you only have to cut one of the tubes. By kotchim, there's sometimes we have to cut two of the tubes even by a bird. So when it says it's only about one, it must be chulin. Elamai sefer b'kotchim. So you have the same kasha if you're going to say the Sefer is Kotshim, because there it says Rov Echad Be'of. But one of the Kotshim, Ha'ika Oilis Oiv, the Boy Shnei Simonim. So my Rov Echad, Rov Kol Echad Ve'echad means the majority of both of the tubes. Because Kivin Deika Chatas, where the Sagile Bechatzim, and you only have to cut one, Mishum Hachi Lo Psikale. So it's ambiguous because you have to deal with both korbanis, the chatas and the ola for the bird. So far, the first two approaches say that the reisha is chullin and the seif is kotshim. Rav Papa says the same thing. Rav Papa on reisha b'chullin, but for a different reason. Mehacha, diktani. In the reisha, it said Rabbi Yehuda Omer that the shechita is not good at sheyishchot esavridin. You have to cut the carotid artery in the vein. Pligi Rabbanan alei. And the Rabbanan argued. Now, if the Reisha is Kodshim, right, because it works, because you don't need a lot of blood. Eliyavet per Kodshim, why should, am I Pligi Rabbanan alei? Who atzmal adamutzak? They don't argue that by Kodshim you need the blood. So clearly, according to that reasoning as well, the Reisha is Chulin. Here comes Rav Ashi, who's the final editor of the Talmud Bavli, and says, Rav Ashi Amar Seifa b'Kotshim Mehacha. He follows the same reasoning that nobody argues. Everyone holds Reisha's Chul and Seifa's Kotshim, but Rav Ashi has a different proof. Diktani. Hashoichet Shnei Roshin Ke'echad Shchitosu Kshera. You have two animals, and with one cut, he does shchita to both. It's okay. But the word hashoichet is mashma b'di'evet. Hashoichet, di'evetin, l'chatchila lo. Now, yamid b'shla b'kotshim. I understand if you're dealing with kotshim, because hainu l'chatchila lo, mishum detani Rav Yosef, tizbachu. And they darshan, tizbach shlo yushnayim shochtim zevach echad. Two people should not shech one korban. Tizbachu shlo ye'echad shochet shnei zvachim. One person shouldn't cut two animals at the same time. Vam Rav Kana tizbacheu ksiv. So that's all about kotshim. Eliyam bechulin afil chatchila nami. But if we're dealing, there's no pasuk by chulin that says you can't do two at one time. So the seifa is clearly kotshim. Vav Rav Shimon ben Lakish Sava Reisha b'chulim v'Sefer b'Kotshim. Dam Reish Lakish ve'achar sheshanino ruba shalechad kamo. You already said in this Reisha, if you cut the majority of the tube, it's okay. So lama shanino, why was it repeated in the Sefer, where it says rov echad be'of v'rov shnai be'beima? For a different reason. Lefisha shanino. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he had to do all the avodah by himself. And they tried to make it easier for him. So, Eviyolos Atomid, they brought him the animal that he had to shech for the Korban Atomid. Krotzo Merik Achashkitos Yodo. He just cut enough rove of the trachea and rove of the esophagus, and another Kohen finished it off. So he could move on. And Yachol lo merik apostle. Now, if the other coin doesn't come and finish it, I might think that it's not a good shchita. L'kach shaninu rov echad be'of rov shnai be'beima, to say that once the Kohen Gadol shechted the majority, it's okay. So it's clearly this second part had to be dealing with kotshim. Amar Mar. Yachol Amerike Apostle. So you had a kasha. I might think that if the other Kohen didn't finish it off, it would be puzzle. But that's another problem. How can you have another Kohen finish off when it says all the avodot of the Yom Kippur has to be done by the Kohen Gadol? That maybe if the other coin didn't come and finish it, it would be a problem midrabanan. The saket that chamina ikapsul midrabanan. perhaps Minat Torah, when you cut 51% of the tubes, it's okay. But the Rabbanon want you to do the whole thing. And here it's going to be a defect min Rabbanon to say, no, the Kachshaninu, Rov Echad B'Av, Rov Shnayim B'Beheima, even me, the Rabbanon, it's enough. So now you're telling me that when the Kohen Gadol cuts 51%, there's no any problem. There's no derisive problem. There's no rabbinic problem. Lama li lamarek. So why did we need another Kohen to come and finish the job? Mitzvah lamarek. It's just a mitzvah min hamuvcher to do it that way. But it's not. It wouldn't be a problem if he didn't. Amrei shlokish mishum levi saba. New concept. Listen, shchita is a process. It has a start and it has a finish. So Reish Lakish says, "Eina shchita ela b'sof." Halachically, shchita is determined at the end. It's not a shchita until the last second. And everything up to that is also not in the parsha of shchita. Rav Yochanan Amar yeshna l'shchita mitchila vad sof. Shchita is defined from the beginning to end. It's all shchita. Now, we'll see what the nafkaminas are here. If a goy had cut the trachea, the siman echad Yisrael, and the Jew came along and cut the esophagus, shehi psula. That which an ovid kechavim shechts is treif. So it's already a treifa when the Jew gets at it. Bar lesof nami. Now, by an olas ha'of, you have to do the malika above the line, the chuta sikra. There was a red line that divided the mizbech into up and lower. Olas ha'of has to be malika above. So, if he did one simin below the line, the simin echad lamala psula. Shorei also b'maisa chatas ha'of. You did a maisa that's needed for a chatas ha'of by another sa'of lamata, then it's not good. There's no machloikes between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Lo nechleku el kon sheshachat simin echad b'chutz. One of the simonim was cut outside of the Azara. The simin echad bifnim. So there's a psul, an invalidation of shchita's chutz. But when does shchita start? So according to Rabbi Yochanan, that yesh lo shchita mitchila vatsof, he started the shchita process outside. So you're going to be mechayev, you're going to be chayev for shchita's chutz. Leman daman and l'shchita l'sof. Reish Lakish says no, shchita is only determined at the end. Well, the last siman which ends the shchita was done inside, and therefore lo mechayev. So Amalei Rava Barsimi, Marlo Amarachi. My Rebbe didn't teach the machlokas this way. And who was my Rebbe? Manu Rav Yosef. When he shechted one of the simonim outside, the simin echad bifnim, nami pasul. According to everybody, even the one who says ein l'shchita el b'sof. Why? Shari also b'maisa chatas ha'of b'chutz. You did if it's a bird, you did a maisa chatas ha'of b'chutz, because a knife instead of malika will also. There's no shchitas chutz if you use a knife. So what is the machlokes? Lo nechleku ela kegon sheshachat miut simonim b'chutz. You didn't cut all of the 50%, but you were outside when you did that. Ugmar bifnim. And you completed the 51% inside. Because you started it outside. Because there was no shchita outside. It was just doing nothing. And then when you finish the shchita, that's the shchita. Mosif Rav Zera and Rabbi Yochanan, who held Yeshna shchita mitchil vad sof. Kol asukim b'para, when you are in the processing of the paraduma, mitchila vad sof, whoever participates in that becomes tamei. Mitamim b'godim upoisnos of melachas acheres. One of the dinim of the paraduma, you cannot do two things. You have to be focused completely on the paraduma. If you try to do something else while you're doing that, it invalidates. Bein kodim psula, bein lachar psula. Whether whatever you were doing is before the psul or after. And if that happens, ain't a metame b'godim. Baza also.
Ernie, that applies to every korban.
No, we're talking about by paraduma because there's a special language.
But if you have
ushchata, you're shechting osa it. So, for example, like let's say he shechts the animal, and then there's a cantaloupe that he opens up with the knife. That doesn't ruin other kachim, but by paraduma it ruins it. He uses the knife to do something else.
Not considered big. Are you in the middle of shechita? Oh, okay.
And you cut something else.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
When by the paraduma, you have to sprinkle its blood towards the Kaddish Kadoshim. If this psul occurs during the sprinkling, then kodim psul matame b'godim. If you are anything that you did before that psul, you will become tamei. Lachar psul ain't matame b'godim because it's an invalid para. If Rav Yochanan is correct that there's shchila from the beginning to end, liflog nami b'shchitasa. This should say like this: Ira b'psul b'shchita. If this double thing happened during the shchita, so you could say as well, kodim psula matame b'godim, lachar psula eina matame b'godim. But it didn't mention shchita; it only mentioned azah. So this rejects what Rav Yochanan wanted to say, but yeshlo shchita l'mitchila vad sof. Omer Rava niskalka l'shchita kamret. That's a case where when you did the shchita, you made it in a vela. Shiny, awesome. Like gloy milsim marfei, love shchita yibiglal. There, you didn't do anything because once it's an avela, you haven't accomplished anything. But other things, if you had a kosher shchita, there would be tumah involved. Now, Amar Rava ikashali hakashali. Lemanda reina shchita lebesov. According to Levi, who said that shchita is only at the last second. Liflog bech shera depara. For example, Kigon the Shachtur betray Gavri. Let's say two people slaughtered the paraduma. The Gavri kamalometama. According to Levi, the guy who starts off the shchita, there's no shchita going on, so he's not metame. The Gavri basra metame because he finished the shchita. So there should have made this chiluk should have been made as well. So Rav Yosef defends Levi. On Rav Yosef, Trey Gavri b'chad zivcha kamrit. How could you give me a case of two people? Bar minedeu, that can't work. The Tanya, we already learned that. Tizbach. Shelo yushnaim shachtim zevachachad. You can't have two people shechting one korban. Tizbachu shelo echad shochet shnei zvachim. One person can't shech two. V'amar v'kana tizbachu ksiv, because of the way it's written. Still, Amar le Abaya, la vitmer Allah, Amar Rav Baruch and Rav Yochanan, Zu de Rav Shimon. Stima saw. In terms of Rav Yochanan saying yeshna mishchita mishchita yeshna l'shchita mitchila vad sof. Aval chachamim oimrim regarding beis shachtim zevachacha, two people can shach. So we'll continue this tomorrow. Tomorrow, Daf